for this purpose, they should be. I mean, there's a broader public purpose here. We need to get this money to small businesses quickly. We need to leverage as many lenders as possible. Wells Fargo does a sizable amount of small business lending. They have a lot of pre-existing customers who could help be benefited immediately. They're on the ground throughout the country. So, yeah, I think for this purpose, the benefit of this outweighs any continued desire to punish Wells Fargo for its consumer issues, which were significant. I don't want to suggest that, but I think this is really kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face when they could really be a part of the solution in the small business program.
Shelia, in the announcement that Wells Fargo put out to say that they only had capacity to do $10 billion for the PPP program, they also made clear that they'd extended in March alone an extra $70 billion of new and increased loan commitments to clients in response to this crisis, just not through the PPP program. But I guess it highlights that underneath that asset cap, they have flexibility for which types of loans to prioritize. So I just wonder whether you think they should be favoring the PPP program more than $10 billion, even if this asset cap doesn't get lifted, or whether they're kind of using the current environment a little bit to put pressure on the Fed.
Well, that may be. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to facilitate other agenda items, perhaps, out of this crisis. I don't know if that's what's going here or not. I think, to ask them to prioritize and say, well, okay, you've got credit lent over here to these other borrowers, but cut back on that because we want more in small business lending. I think that's hard to tell a bank. And as you know, I'm not a big advocate for big banks. But I do think this is, they have a lot of capacity to lend, especially in the small business space. We need, in a prudent way, we need to be letting banks expand their balance sheets. We should be encouraging them at this point in time to expand their balance sheets, to extend credit to businesses, households, employers, large and small. So I really think that is the ultimate goal right now and what we should be focused on. And again, I don't see why except to just continue, this punishment. And they've been punished a lot. Maybe should continue to be. But in this instance, I think the benefits of letting them make a lot more small business loans outweighs that factor.
I mean, I guess they have seen a lot of the other punishments put behind them, not to mention new management team and all sorts of other actions they've taken. Nonetheless, Shelia, reporting from my colleague Steve Leisman and I suggests that the Wells Fargo did start this conversation about possibly having a temporary lift to the asset cap a couple of weeks ago, and clearly that hadn't happened yet. Knowing regulators as you do you think that their incentive to lift this cap temporarily will have been enhanced or reduced based on being kind of called out publicly a little bit by Wells Fargo?
Well, I think it's so, as a regulator, I never liked entities I regulated to go public. I don't know, but apparently they were trying to have a private conversation. I've not talked to them. I don't know what's going on in their minds. So that's always a dangerous strategy to go public with pressure for a regulatory objective. And if they did that, as opposed to a leak, then shame on them. But putting that aside, I still think in this instance, given the extreme credit needs throughout the economy, especially in the small business sector, that it would certainly be justifiable for the Fed to temporarily lift this cap, at least for expanding capacity to do these small business loans. And the Fed's been offering other regulatory relief, some of it I don't agree with, especially on capital. So it's not like this is the only area where they've been easing up a bit. But I do think this, because of the tangible benefit you would get for small business lending, I do think it's justified here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of wondering, Sheila, if maybe Wells Fargo is an example of this or not, but with these hasty bailouts, which have been praised by all sorts of corporate leaders and strategists and investors and policymakers we talk to, just how much moral hazard there's going to be. How many examples, whether it's the small business lending facility or the Federal Reserve mainstream lending facility, there's going to be how much it's going to encourage risky behavior and how many checks there are actually going to be to make sure these funds are handled responsibly by big business. No buybacks, no laying off workers, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a real issue. I mean, fortunately, though, we're fighting a virus. We're not, we're not rewarding people whose misbehavior caused the problem to begin with. So at least that's not a factor this time around. But especially I'm much more sympathetic to the smaller businesses, the owner-operated businesses. Some of the large businesses were prudently and well managed and just got hit by this. Others, and we've all pointed out, examples, airlines, Boeing, what have you, were poorly managed, distributed more capital than they should, took risks they shouldn't have, and now they're kind of getting help because of the broader economic needs. So I think that's unfortunate. But again, there are not a lot of good options here. I applaud the fact that Congress wisely said no buybacks, no dividends, no outsized executive pay if you're getting help under the CARES Act for large businesses. I think that's absolutely right. At least that will, by telling them what they can't spend it on, you'll force the funds into where they should be putting their funds, which is operations and payroll in particular. So that will be an important safeguard and guardrail on this. They've also created an oversight board that will be looking at this. They will have name and shame capacity if there's misappropriation of funds, which hopefully, gosh forbid, that does not happen. I really think now is the time for corporate America to step up and be responsible and say, yes, our shareholders have been getting trillions in payouts for the last few years, record numbers. It's time for everybody to give a little. We're going to give up our pay. We're going to suspend dividends and buybacks. We're going to prioritize our workers and the economy and stay operational so we can get back online quickly once this passes. I hope that's what's going on in the minds of corporate leadership, because I think now may be an opportunity, too, to redeem themselves a bit. With their wide-scale abuses, you're right, there's going to be a huge public outcry, and it's going to, they want to go to more government control of the market, more socialism. Well, that's a good way to get all that started.
Well, certainly it has drawn less controversy than the 2008-2009 bailout. Yeah, Shelia Bair, thank you very much.
Sure. My pleasure.